Good afternoon. We are talking to you from San Antonio, Texas. This session is Democracy is not only majority rule, it is minority protection. And we're considering what is the public's role when government exercises difficult authority. An activist as well as a poet. Reverend Ann Helmke, formerly City of San Antonio Faith-Based Liaison Office, Susan Carbell, Chair of the Northeast Bexar County Democrats and Democratic Precinct Chair for 3067. I was introducing Sister Denise LaRock, who works on the front line with immigrants. And I also want to mention that I am assisted by Natalia Vargas, a graduate student here in San Antonio. What to know about Texas? It's a home to many residents. Keep in mind, 40% white, 40% Hispanic, about 12% Black, 5% Asian. Texas also has the third most language diversity. Now, think about that. With nearly 35% of residents speaking a non-English language in their homes. Texas is the second largest state after Alaska and the second highest in population with 29 million residents. 2.5 million of those are residing here in our city, San Antonio. It is a hot state, a hot place, and it has quite a variety of climate. Texans are typically known to be prideful, conservative, gun owners, and Christian. And a couple of these slides are borrowed from a fine group of student presenters who were on at 7 this morning. Detention facilities sit at the intersection of law, policy, and human vulnerability, often beyond public view. In this session, citizen and interfaith volunteers share how standing in solidarity with people in immigrant detention serves as a form of democratic participation, not political protest. Through presence, relationship, and witness, communities help sustain transparency, dignity, and accountability. Participants will explore how this model of civic engagement in Texas, the state with the most people in detention, can be adopted across the United States wherever people risk becoming invisible within institutional systems. Now, I want for you to note the bold-faced words: presence, relationship, and witness, transparency, dignity, and accountability. I am going to focus on dignity. This is Guatemala. Two of my former students started a nonprofit, Little Angels of Mary, in one of the poorest areas of Guatemala. 69% of the children are malnourished. Look at that mother. She has human dignity. She is a person just like us. She doesn't want the children to starve to death. She doesn't want their brains to be stunted. If they don't get enough nourishment before they're 4 years old, their brains will be stunted. We are working in partnership with this woman. She has human dignity. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which I have taught in a full semester class, and Catholic social teaching, I happen to be a Catholic sister, both emphasize that every person on earth has human dignity. When we are concerned about immigrants, it's because they are human beings just like us. Now, I'd like to turn things over to our next two presenters.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think when you think about presence, it does take several different forms. What we did in Dili was to be physically there in a march in one instance. And in this case, even though it's about Liam, it was a broader issue, right? It's all the children in the center and all the people in the center. And the detention center that has the misnomer as a family residential center, when we know that that sounds rather nice, but doesn't really lend to any of the things that we hear are happening there. Sister Denise probably will tell us more about that because we were not able to get anywhere near the center. But the presence was to have a number of people through the wonderful work of several organizations here in San Antonio and in Austin and in San Marcos. There might have been Houston. Several churches in Houston also came to the event, and we all met at Dili to walk up to the center. That said, some of the conversations during the rally were about the transparency that Sister Martha Ann talked about, which is what do we know is happening in the centers? As we heard in the Minneapolis one, it's also what do we know about the process and how people are being taken from our streets, and is there a legal pathway that we know, a process by which they should be detained, how they should be recorded, where they are and where they're going, communication to the lawyers. We don't get any of that. So part of that was also to speak about the transparency and the accountability. But our presence then was there to show that there are lots of different areas in which we need information, both for the families, first and foremost, obviously. Second, for the lawyers, so that they can continue pursuing the legal pathways necessary. And then for the community as a whole, because we as a community, faith-based leaders, activists, people just that live anywhere in any of our cities need to know how it is that our government is conducting this process.
So what I want to do is talk about how you organize or try to organize at the grassroots level in order to oppose all of this stuff that's going on. Turns out that I am a retired professor, and with 3 other retired professors, we go down to our local taco joint and have been doing that for a long time, to eat tacos and to solve the world's problems. As it turns out, this was all very intellectual, very distant. But when all of this began to break, all of this began to happen right here in our community, then we thought, well, what can we do? What is it that we can do? And so we thought about it, and 3 of us are retired professors of Latino history at 3 different institutions. The other one is an architect, and the other is an educational specialist, a person who knows the Latino education. So we all specialize in the history and culture and education of our local communities. So with that knowledge, what can we do? We range between 75 and 88. So unlike the old days where we could hit the streets without much problem, it's not so easy anymore. So what else can we do? Well, we can use our skills. And what are our skills? Our skills are the knowledge that we have and an ability to write about it, and ability to try to spread the word about what is actually and really happening. Because a lot of people, it's astounding how few people really know what the reality is on the streets of what's going on, even with all the news. And so we formed a group which we call Surviving the Ice Age. And we started a blog, which you can all find at survivingice.com. And the blog is designed to reach out to our community and to wherever else with the information that they need to know about with regarding to what's happening. So, for example, we have on this blog, we ask people to take a stand. We tell them who we are and what we're about. We write essays and commentaries, and not only do we do it, but we get other academics and other journalists and others also to try to contribute to talking about a variety of different issues relating to what's going on. We write stories. we do art and poetry. And then maybe one of the important things is that every time that we find an article out there in the world from all the newspapers and places, we post them. So you can go and you can just see the postings of all of these articles over time, and you can see how this whole thing has evolved. It has been evolving. And so if we can get people to go to the blog, because that's the next thing, you know, we're of the old school, and we're not really high tech people. So we look for help and try to learn new technology to be able to spread the word on what's happening out there. So that's our way of trying at the very grassroots to try to do something from the perspective of the old folks. Thanks.
Her mother-in-law was out there marching to Dilley. You're not the old folks. And she was a wonderful example to all of us. That she just felt very strongly, I think especially through her faith, that we need to care about the people. And so here was Miriam's mother marching to the detention center.
88, she got gassed.
I'd like to go to Ann Helmke, who has been a major force in our city, uniting us in compassion and service and justice.
And I'm going to be kind of the educational pause in these presentations. We've got a couple more after me as well. But all these things we're talking about today, presence, relationship, witness, transparency, dignity, and accountability, those are all aspects of compassion. And as we learn more and more and practice more and more the skills of compassion, then we see that these are the skill sets. So there's a foundation that's essential to all of these of why we're doing it, along with wanting to do something and helping our neighbor, right? It's kind of the qualifier for what we do. And it's all based on the ethic of reciprocity, which is more commonly known as the golden rule. But, you know, to treat all others the way we wish to be treated, as well as not treating others the way we don't wish to be treated, right? So it makes me think back to when there was the stronger surge of immigration started to happen in 2019. But you know, there was a lot of like, what's happening here in the United States? And everybody was going every which direction. But in San Antonio, our city manager, our mayor, and the community, everyone said this is the right thing to do, to welcome people coming in. Because if it were me coming in and under like, you know, situations, wouldn't I be looking for help and hospitality and care and direction, right? Would I want to be turned away? No. Would I want to be ignored? No. Would I want to be mistreated or left hungry? No. So you can see how, you know, foundationally this ethic helps things like what others are talking about today in this actual panel. It helps guide being present. To be present to somebody, you know, if I were in a detention center, I would certainly hope that people would come to help me and that I would have relationships outside of that or building relationships to move and change things forward. Somebody witnessing to what was happening to those of us inside, and so that we weren't forgotten and unseen, right? And that all of the work would be transparent. It wasn't like we were, you know, people were coming and helping us, you know, through the crack in the window, right? That it was out there and respecting the human dignity of everybody there, which would in turn hold everybody accountable, even, well, everybody, whether it's governmental civic roles or the faith community or community itself, it would hold us all accountable. I think in this particular conversation and amazing title, what that ethic does is move that majority rule not only to minority kind of responsibility, it becomes everyone's responsibility to be about this work. And so that ethic helps to ground what we're doing. And, you know, a lot of what we've been doing in San Antonio is building that relationship across different sectors that don't normally work together. So the faith community with the civic leadership working together so that when that surge happened, this is what we need to do. And everybody rallied and welcomed in, fed people, cared for people, sent them on the way, helped them make their home here, whatever was needed. But part of that was because we were already a compassionate city, and we'd been practicing on a very large community scale what that means in terms of treating others like we want to be treated and equally not mistreated. So I think that's really critical, not only in what we've already heard, because we've heard all of these things already in our presentations, but I think now hearing it, when we listen to like Denise's and Susan's presentation, we'll start to hear what they're doing, that this compassion is actually a policy into moving people forward. So I'm going to end it there and pass it on to whoever's next.
I forgot to show these two slides, but I think it is just the right time for us to see them. And I am grateful to the students that presented this morning, and they had these two slides about Dilley. So we are going to look at two slides that describe things a little bit, that controversies in Dilley, First Amendment in South Texas, faith rights, freedom of speech, including press, peaceful assemblies, and to petition the government. And the student was talking about his experience covering protests from San Antonio to Dilley. He is getting a master's in communication at our university. So the South Texas Family Residential Center opened in 2014, and it's about 55 acres containing a maximum of 2,400 individuals, which is about 68% of the town's population. It's a small town of 3,500. And the people that live there, like the church people that were hosting us, were saying, please don't call it the Dilley Detention Center. It doesn't belong to us, the people of Dilley. It is a nearby detention center owned by the government. In 2024, the center was far more expensive to run compared to other facilities and was closed by the Biden administration. Trump later reopened it last year in April. The controversies are really related to Marie Juarez, a 19-month-old child who died in 2019 following her release from the center due to neglect and mistreatment. And more recently in the news, 5-year-old Liam Conejo Ramos and his father, Adrian. Maybe you remember seeing the pictures of little 5-year-old Liam in his little blue cap, and reported concerning conditions that continue today. So that will give you a little more context of what we're talking about. And now we'd like to go to Susan Carvel.
I'm looking at this from a slightly different perspective of 55 years protesting and trying to make this world a better place. I was from Detroit, Michigan, so civil rights were a big part of my life, and then the anti-war movement. I've moved through whatever I could to try to educate people and get them involved. What I'm focusing on right now is that many of us feel like the courts are helping us more than some of the other branches of government. And so this group that I'm the chair of, Northeast Bexar County Democrats, has been putting a lot of emphasis on how we can make the courts even more accountable. So I'm not going to deal with SCOTUS today. I'm only going to deal with our local courts. We developed a program called Law School for a Day. And what we did was, throughout many months that just ended, we looked at all the different courts. We looked at probate court and all the different, almost like a Jerry Springer show where people are yelling at each other about family issues, to justice of the peace courts, where we spent a day looking at evictions, which broke our hearts, and still they were very important procedures going on every day in our community. We looked at county courts, we looked at civil district courts, we looked at juvenile courts, we looked at specialty courts for mental health and reflejo, we looked at family violence, and we visited the courts, we did field trips, and then we invited the judges to come and join with us in fellowship so that we could learn more about them as people, as personalities that are in our lives, that are public servants to us. So these two examples were important to me to present to you. The one on the left is the Reflejo Court, which deals with family violence. And what I observed, what we all observed, was that a whole group of caring professionals are dealing with very, very sensitive situations to try to help these people get through deferred adjudication. So this would be people who have difficult issues at home, drugs, whatever, but it's social workers. It is the probation officer. And yes, it is the judge. It is the court, but it is in a compassionate way. And so we were able to witness for a full day, and we've been doing these on an ongoing basis, but I'm just talking about this one, how they talk about each individual, how every person is important to them. And they spend, hours thinking about the accountability of this person to make it through a year-long process so that they can go back into their world and their family can accept them and they can move on. The one events workshop that I have on the other side, on the right side, this was with these were very serious criminal cases. One was prostitution, and one was drugs, and one was juvenile. And in each case, what we heard were stories. It was way beyond what you see on Crime and Punishment or, Law and Order. These were the real people in our lives who were trying to help our society come together and be better. So these are all the judges that over the past 7 months, we have personally visited and talked to. Now, why am I showing you all this? I'm showing you it because the judges want to be a part of our lives, but they are separated in many ways. And all of the people that work with the courts, they want to be the best community that they can be. And so when we're thinking about how do we take some people to justice, how are we going to look at whether it's Nuremberg trials or in the future accountability that we know has to be done in our future world, we have to know that our judges are there for us. And so we are in a position where we can be compassionate. And as they know we're in the audience listening, we are the witnesses to everyone's struggle. Here's how you can find us. I know that you're all from all over the world, but we would love to have you. We have Zoom meetings, and you can read more about it on my Substack. I know everybody says that in the end, but it will give you brief examples of pictures of all of our different visits to the courts. And I look forward to hearing from any of you. I'm done.
Thank you so much. We turn to Sister Denise LaRock, and our city has such a powerful interfaith welcome coalition, and it just makes me feel really good to be in the presence of Sister Denise.
What an introduction. Thank you. I'm sorry it's so dark in here. You wouldn't believe I have 3 lights on. But anyway, that's light. I really want to talk about relationships, and I think that's so key. And I think Minnesota has done a great example of expressing that and showing that. Our situation in San Antonio is different than Minnesota in the sense that we have a huge number of immigrants and many mixed status families, meaning someone has U.S. citizenship, someone doesn't. The kids might, some of the kids might, some might not. So it's a much scarier and a larger scale vulnerability I think we have. I've been with the Interfaith Welcome Coalition for a while, and it's existed for 11 years, and we've gone through all these versions of service based on what's going on with immigration. We're most known for our help in the airport and bus station as families were dropped off from the Dilley Family Detention Center. ICE would contact us, let us know how many are being dropped off at each place, about when, how many. And recently just started doing that again as they've been releasing so many families, either to Laredo or in San Antonio. So what I want to talk about is really how everyone can play a part. I think it's easy to think that, the lawyers are doing this or the advocates are doing that, or, certain people can play a part. But there's really something that everyone who's trying to support the immigrants can do. I just want to mention the programs that the Interfaith Welcome Coalition is doing. It's many churches, many faith groups, many non-faith people. It's just really teaming up to work with each other. There's a lot of collaboration with other organizations, community organizing groups, churches, advocacy groups, rapid response groups, those who are planning protests. It's everybody working together and everyone bringing their gifts and talents and ideas to get things done. So let me give you an example of the things the Interfaith Welcome Coalition does, and hopefully it'll give you all a sense of the things that are needed, for one, in places where the immigrants are being disappeared, but also things that you could do, because everyone can do their little piece, because everyone's little piece makes a big, nice puzzle, right? IWC, Interfaith Welcome Coalition, we do accompanying to ICE check-ins and to court appearances, immigration court. This is a place where people who are following the rules often are taken despite what the judge says at court or whatever. So to go with them and to be a source of compassion, but also let the family know if they've been taken, And the mother's gone, the mother and the child's gone, the family split, the car's left behind, she's got the keys, all those kinds of things. It's an important time to be with someone else, to be a presence. Detention visitation is another thing. We have 3 detention centers in our area, and ICE is trying to open a new warehouse to warehouse detainees. And so not everyone has a family member who's able to go visit them. They're an hour from the city in different directions. So going and being a presence to them, being encouraging, praying with them, putting money in the commissary account. Someone mentioned it before that often it's the breadwinner of the family who's taken. So the family is financially struggling at home, and if they don't have money in the commissary account, they can't even call home. So it's a challenge, and we collaborate with other organizations who run food banks, food pantries, because people are hungry. There's a new pilot program we're doing to deliver food to families, because so many are just terrified of losing someone in their family. So they're keeping very close to home and don't have a breadwinner, need food, afraid to go out for food. So people can deliver food. A lot of people say, what can I do? I don't speak Spanish. Well, there you go. Deliver food. And the universal language of a smile and a hug of support, right? Mm-hmm. There's another collaborative effort. It's office hours program, document clinic, where people come with papers, and it's not for, things that people need a lawyer for, but, your husband's been taken, you want to go back to Mexico with your kids. You got to figure out how to get passports for your children so they'll be allowed out of the United States. How to change your address if you've moved and you got to go to court somewhere else. All these kinds of issues, getting things notarized and so on. There's just so much involved. We have immigration court ushers who we collaborate with American Gateways, who's just a wonderful organization who helps people know what they're getting into before they go into court. The hospitality program that IWC has is probably the only one that can't just survive on volunteers. But there's a lot of people who get released from detention and are stuck. They can't travel till the next day, or their flight was canceled, or this or that. They don't have tickets yet, but we're called upon to help house those people overnight, to give them food, get them to the airport, get them to the bus station, wherever they're going. And so there's so many opportunities for people to help and to do their part. It doesn't have to be everybody doing everything. We have another simple thing that can be done with different people of faith is every Monday morning, we stand across the street from the immigration courthouse and have time for prayer. Prayer for those who are going in and for those who will end up being put in the bus right in front of us. I don't want to use up too much more time. Leave some time for questions. But just to remember, all our groups can work together. Not one group can do everything. And there's a place for everybody. Everyone can do something to help. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to put together Susan's presentation about get to know the judges and call forth the best of their humanity with the other things that we are not doing, that we are talking about. That a sister that we live in the same convent, and she goes with Mennonite friends to, if is going to have their legal hearing, and they go for that, sometimes ICE will take them. So 2 days ago, they accompanied a woman, and very fortunately, it was a thoughtful judge wanting to practice justice. And the woman has another year in this country, and she wasn't grabbed by ICE and put into the white bus and kidnapped and deported. Who'd like to talk?
I'd like to add a couple things, if I may. Part of what I described earlier about that blog, in a bigger sense, it's about raising consciousness in the country about, and not just speaking to the choir, but speaking to people who aren't paying attention. And the question is, how do you get to them? And I said, I think when people listen to what the story is, they begin to get a little uncomfortable with what's happening. The other thing, as a historian, what's happening today, this is not the first time. The assaults on Latino peoples, particularly Mexican Americans, has been going on for a century. There were deportations in the 1990s. There were deportations in the 1950s. There were deportations in the 1930s. We want their labor until we don't want it anymore. But this is the first time there's been such an organized, massive move, a suggestion that anybody who is undocumented deserves to be thrown out, even if it means throwing out American citizens by mistake, quote, and sent to prisons abroad. I think that big story needs to be told. And I think that one of the reasons that the current administration, and in Texas in particular, is trying to close down ethnic studies programs, gender studies programs, and all the rest of it, is that they want people to forget their history. They don't want them to know this stuff. They just want them to live purely in the present. So I think we need to have a really broad vision about all the different things, which really interestingly, I think this panel represents.
I'd like to add something in. I think a big issue for me in all this is due process or lack thereof. And it's very concerning to me for so many people to be vulnerable to detention and deportation without things being checked out, without, documents being looked at and honored and protected. And, in this attitude of let's just kick everyone out, a lot of people are being hurt. So many people who have worked so hard to come legally and to go through the process. I met so many people at the border who had come and were in detention when they first came. A number of people were in the Dilley detention center and went through the process of being approved to get out of there. And then they find themselves in detention again recently, in Dilley again, when went through all that process and all the paperwork and all their approval, and then to find themselves in detention again. It's just heartbreaking, for families and for children to say, why am I in detention? Why am I incarcerated? What have I done? What has my child done? What have we done to deserve this? And that accountability that's really needed, and that honoring due process and the dignity and respect, honor to all people.
Susan, I think you wanted to comment.
Here we are in Texas. I don't know who's listening or where you're from.
Right.
But a lot of people came to Texas because monopoly capitalism demands workers. And so many people came here from the north, from the south, from the east, from the west, looking for a better life. America was a place that at one point people thought, I'm sorry to put in the past tense, could provide a better life for all. We feel in San Antonio, Texas, that we're going to take a different stand than the Alamo. We are going to stand for human rights. And whatever reason people came to visit us, to stay with us, to try to thrive, we're going to stand for them. And I'm going to tell you something. We can make a difference, not just in Texas, but in the United States, in the world, when we show and stand up. I am so proud of being on this panel and particularly listening to Sister Denise. I can't stand us not making a change right now. And so thank you for listening to us. There are ways that you can hold out hope. We're not alone.
I have one more comment to add to that. I've learned a lot about the people here, the groups that when people ask me all the time, where can I go, what organization? And so interfaith, everything that I've learned, and there's a lot of other organizations in San Antonio that we heard of some of them in the immigration march that we just went to, new groups that are forming. But I think for those of you listening out there, wherever you may be, as this conference is international, everything that one does, as Sister Denise LaRock said, is important. But for the general, I guess, view on where it comes up on the radar, it is the marches in the street. It is not to say that what everything else is done in a quiet way, in a subtle way, where it's not visible, it's just as important. But what people also need to see is the people marching, the people protesting. And we know that because we see that in all the other countries, wherever you are, that we've seen you out in the streets on your issues or on what's happening here, responding to it. And that's just as necessary. So I wanted just to highlight that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Wherever you are in the world, I encourage you, search right now and find Barefoot Walk, Vital Voices. And I had the honor of being with Palestinian and Israeli women last May who said, no child should be killed, no child should have to kill. And so we are having a walk together to demonstrate this. And they are walking in Rome on March 24th, but they are inviting us all over the world to unite with them, whether you're physically walking or you're just signing on to their petition. So look for Barefoot Walk, sponsored by Vital Voices. I'm going to keep talking, but my friends are welcome to interrupt me, because one of the sisters in my convent has been a part of the Interfaith Welcome Coalition. Occasionally, when people would come from a detention center to the bus station and not have any place to stay, they would spend the night in our convent. And it has been a profoundly touching experience to have a mother from Honduras with her 4-year-old child, and to hear her story that a gang came to their home. They cut her brother's head off and threatened all of them. She grabbed her child and walked, did anything she could to get to our border, and then she asked for asylum. She asked for safety for her and her 4-year-old. So she has stayed in our convent. Another time, a man from Venezuela and his high school age son stayed in our convent, and we heard stories about the Darien Gap, the terrible, dangerous jungle that they had to go through. And again, they came to our border. They begged for asylum. That is a human right. That is a legal right. They have done the right thing. I am glad that we are here talking about the human family and protecting the dignity of each one.
And you know what this makes me think of? I mean, it just are, the better angels, believing in the better angel of ourselves, the better spirit, but also equally believing in that better spirit in everyone, right? That is one of Lincoln's things, believing, in our better angels. And I was just thinking this weekend, the ethic of reciprocity, that golden rule, is found in all the world religions, all of them. It's like the one thing we have in common. Like, here's a peace plan. What if people of faith just decided not to kill each other?
And going right along with that, I am holding up the Charter for Compassion 2, which I find a wonderful guiding document. Search for that on the internet, Charter for the Compassion 2. We, the global community of Earth, stand at a threshold moment in human and planetary history. The principle of compassion, which has always resided at the heart of all religious, ethical, spiritual, and indigenous traditions, now calls us to a profound transformation, from separation to kinship, from charity to justice, from competition to cooperation, and from human-centered thinking to universal awareness. We can be compassionate people and transform the world.
I would like to add that we all need to get ready for the new detention center that some people think they're going to put on San Antonio's east side. And that's going to be the next big fight in San Antonio, I think. So keep your ears and eyes peeled and express your anger and your opposition to yet another detention center on our east side of San Antonio.
Yes, Commissioner Calvert will be bringing forth to the county commissioners at his next meeting his resolution that we should all attend.
This is our time. We are so grateful to the audience that has been with us, and we are especially grateful to Lucy Gray. She is the woman behind organizing and putting on this conference, and these are important and profound conferences. I don't know, Lucy, if you would like to make a comment, or Marilyn Turkovich, our executive director, if you would like to make a comment.
Marilyn is in the audience and she had a comment for Anne. Anne, do you want to address the San Antonio's Compassionate Cities position on immigrants and refugees?
All are welcome.
That's great. It's simple. It says it all. So I want to say thank you, all of you, for being here and for representing your community so well. And this, along with the Minneapolis presentation earlier, was really meaningful. I think you are compassion in action. You are showing others how to be activists and to do their thing. And one of our goals from this conference is for everyone to leave with one resource, tool, idea for doing something in their own context. And because I keep on hearing this message from the various pundits out there, no one is going to save us. And we have to do it. The people have to rise up and do it. And my message to people is that if you may think whatever you're doing is one small thing, but those collectively make an impact. And so I think there's so many creative ideas here in this whole conference for figuring out what that is. I also wanted to mention that I've been bookmarking resources that are mentioned in a database before the conference and after the conference. I'll put the link in the chat. And there are one of the things I found to be kind of useful is there are a couple of protest trackers in there. So you can see what's going on in your community. There's tons of stuff in there. It's a little overwhelming, but you can search it by keyword and all sorts of things. And you can also add to it as well. I put your blog in, I put your Substack in. The charter is now on Substack, by the way, and has a podcast with Jennifer Needle. So we can all follow each other and keep the work going, because this is going to be a long haul. It's getting through what we're dealing with right now, but it's also going to be about how we rebuild and how do we grow a pipeline of compassionate people who are going to keep the world going in the right direction. So, yeah, go ahead.
How do we vote, and how do we protect people's ability to vote?
So there's a lot of work to be done. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to all the volunteers, all the people behind the scenes, the committee that's been formulating this. We're hoping to do it again in September before things really kick up for the midterms. And we hope to see you back here then. And stay tuned for more information about the content here and that sort of thing. I'll get off the stage and let Sister Martha have the last word.
Thank you. Then I am going to end with the last part of the Charter for Compassion, which I think is so wonderful. The Charter is our sacred promise to life itself, a commitment to embody the change we seek, to heal the wounds we have inherited, and to plant seeds flourishing for generations yet to come. It is an invitation to participate in the greatest story ever told, the story of life awakening to its own sacred nature and choosing love over fear, cooperation over domination, and healing over harm. May our words become actions, our actions become culture, and our culture become the foundation for a world where all beings can thrive in dignity, beauty, and beloved community. Thank you.